So today, officially, we are going to be on page 7 with graphing our square root functions. But we're going to add a couple of directions to this here in a minute. But before we do that, just a reminder of a couple of things. So I'm just kind of popping part of the notes up from yesterday. So these graphs that we're making, these square root functions, basically what we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves a chart. We're going to let the calculator do the heavy lifting. We're not going to have to do a ton ourselves. And then our main job is just going to be, once we use the calculator to get our points and make our graph, we're going to use that for a couple different things. We're going to use it to find our domain and range. We said yesterday, I can do it if I'm visual. I can just see my furthest point to the left. Go forever to the right. I can see my lowest point. And I can go to my range. Or I can even better, if I make my chart, those first numbers that came in after the error message, and we'll see that again today, is the start of your domain and range. So you can steal that from the calculator. So the button presses I have up here, I've got on the front board as well, so we have access to them as we go. But if you need it later, we can get that. So, calculators, and again, the easiest way to make this work is to actually do them with as we're doing them and not just watch mine, because sometimes that can be make it a little trickier later. So first thing we're going to do today is we're going to add a couple of things up here at the top. It says find the domain and range, that's cool. Sketch the graph, that's cool. We're going to add one more direction. Trying to make sure I use the correct language here. We're going to list any transformations or shifts of our graph. And again, when I say that, while you're kind of maybe jotting that down somewhere, this is what I'm talking about with that when we were doing these yesterday. Is my graph moving left, right, up, down? Is it stretching? Is it compressing? Is it reflecting? That's a lot of vocabulary to keep track of. And so the more you're seeing it and the more you're doing it, the easier it's going to become. Just like learning a new language or an instrument or anything like that. And so what we're going to do, like I said, is I'm going to jump in. We're going to bounce around to a few of these that have some different things going on. I just want to peek at one thing quick. Okay. And kind of let you see some of the things that we can run into here. So, I think what we're going to end up doing, I just want to look over here. Okay, that'll work. We're going to do 2, we're going to do 4, and we're going to do 3. I think that gets us a good combination of things here. So, okay. Actually, I know 4 is after 2, but it's up here at the top. So we'll start with 4. So first things first, let's keep life simple. Make us a chart. X, Y. And we are going to let the calculator start working for us here right away. So, again, Y equals, to get where we're at, because all these say Y equals. I didn't put that on the board because that's kind of a given. And if you got stuff there, some crazy stuff going on, and we don't want it, we just hit the clear button. That'll wipe everything out. That's easier than doing delete. So Y equals and clear. So here's my expression. So if you look over on the board over there, or on your note sheet, if we hit second and x squared, little square roots above it there. There's my square root. Here's my x, this xt theta n. And I start typing. And we chatted about this yesterday. If I just kept typing right now, the +2 would end up under the radical. I'll even show you +2. Yeah, we don't want that. +2 not under the radical. So let me get that taken care of. To get out of there, you just do what the calculator's telling you, which is arrow to the right, just like that. And then we do +2. and we roll on. So once I have it set, I want to look at the table. I mean, if I want to look at the graph, I can just hit graph. And I'm like, huh. Moved left, moved up. We'll chat about that in a minute. But when I want to look at the table of values, I just want second in graph. And I want to see those error messages showing up. Because again, that tells me where my graph can't go and where it's going to start. So my first coordinate point is at -4, 2. Excuse me. And that, thank you. And that would be, I just want the whole numbers when I can. I really don't want to go. Can I get one more? Now, I know this graph goes all the way to 20, but I don't need to go crazy here. That's going a little wild. So if I get upwards of 4 values, that really is enough. And so I'm going to plot those, because again, these are just coordinate points. Regular old points we graph like we normally would. So here's my x-axis. So I go left 4 and up a couple. I go left 3 and up 3. 0, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. And as we mentioned yesterday when we first started this, when you're graphing, you put an arrow going to the right, because that's going to keep going and going forever. Not forever to the left. We see it right here. So only the arrow on the right side. And so once we get that part done, now I can do all this other stuff that I'm being asked to do. So we kind of chatted about this at the beginning. We could see in the picture itself that we'd shifted left. If you start at the 0, 0 here at the origin, we went left. And that +2 I see is up, but I can see it literally on my graph. Like I can see I went 1, 2, 3, 4 left and 1, 2 up to start. So that part shouldn't be bad. And then the only thing left is domain and range. And as we have said many a time, all you got to remember here, if you made your table, that's where you start. Or if I look at my graph, it's my x furthest to the left, and I go, okay, well, here's the x, 1, 2, 3, -4. Okay, they both work. Here's my y. My range starts at 2. So literally everything you need, except maybe for writing down the transformations, everything else will come straight from the calculator if you let it. So it shouldn't be too bad of a deal. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now, the reason I chose the next one, because it's not that complex. You're like, what's so bad about 2? Why are we doing this? Because here, I have people get confused because that 4 is in front. They start to think that it's a 2 like this is, but it's not. So I'm going to actually rewrite this. Because whenever I see a plus or a minus with one of mine, I'd rather see that at the end, because that's where I'm used to seeing it. But you could put it in the calculator either way and be fine. But let's do something a little different this time. Not the domain and range, but at least the shifts. What direction am I going to be going for? Outside the radical. So not left or right. We'll narrow it down a little. It's like the exact same problem. So we know we're going to be going up 4. So when I go to put this in, clear. Again, either way will work. So I notice when I graph it, hey, it went up 4 from the origin. So I know that I said this right. And I pull my chart, don't like the error messages, not my favorite. But once those error messages end, can I get one more? Okay. Literally just copying from the graph. Again, we've got our X and Y axis here to remind us. So right 1 and up 5. Right 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 2, 3, 6. Right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My dots to the right. And since we already did our up 4, and I can see it here, the only thing left is to do domain and range. And again, I didn't have a left or a right shift this time, a left or a right transformation, so that stays at 0. And the up 4 would deal with my range. Keep it simple. The one twist we haven't talked about yet is what happens if there's a number in front of your radical. And not like this, where it's a plus or minus, but literally when there's a number there. So I look at this and I go, okay. So one more time, let's see, where am I going to put this? Let's move this up a little more. There we go. Now, shifts. This time I got 3 transformations. That 5, so we're going to stretch 5. Again, because my graph's going to get wider because of the big number. Whoops, move my sheet. We also, again, just kind of checking where things are. Okay, so that says right, so we'd have right 3, because left and right's always under my radical. And then the plus 2 is outside, which is always my up, or in this case, down. That's a lot of stuff going on. So let's see if we can get a little help here now. Clear that out. 5's in front. Nothing in between that and the radical or the square root. So we're going to do second and x squared. Make sure that minus 2 is outside with our right arrow. And I can see a few things when I actually graph it. First, I can see definitely there's a stretch. That's gotten a lot wider. I've moved right, and it's moved down a little bit. So I'm feeling pretty good that I'm saying the right things so far. So right after, again, my error messages. Get my -2 in there. Am I going to get one more? I really can't fit 12, 13. I mean, I'm going to write it down. Can't really fit that in there. All right, let's see. So here we are at the origin at 0, 0. We're going to go right 3, down 2. We're going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. And even if those were the only 3 I got, I've got a pretty accurate graph at this point. I'm going to wing it on this last one. So 5, 10, 11, 12. 5, 10, 11, 12. 13 is going to be like up here somewhere. So super wide. Then again, keep it simple. Domain and range. Whoop. Again, if I wasn't sure, starting here at 3, come back to the x-axis. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And -2, because again, follow it back to the y-axis. We went down 2. That's it. So whether it's this finishing up, if you get done early, I do have a couple of options to throw your way. If you hadn't completed some of the stuff from the first day we started in this packet, that might not be a bad place to go. I'm going to repost the notes here in a minute and get them on Classroom. That's not a bad idea either. If you are looking for extra points and extra practice, I mean, it's kind of a double dip that way. If you wanted to go backwards a little bit in your packet to page 3, you're like, oh, we've seen these before. Yeah, the puzzle maze, where you start, you solve your radical equation. I'll do the first one. So if you're on page 3, we're looking to see is the radical alone first. So again, we got to keep our notes handy and dandy here. And I put my wrong notes in front of me. That's all right. But once this is alone, we square it, because that's the only way I can get rid of the radical. And again, 6 squared is just 36, not 12. And we got a 2-step equation that we're solving. This stuff will be coming on the quiz as well. We'll be chatting about it more tomorrow. But again, there is nothing wrong with getting yourself some extra points. Practice to boot. So the one that I get correct, I go to the next one and go from there. And actually, I'll do the second one too, just because there's something different going on here, and I want to make sure that, we're well started. This time, I'm not doing the squaring first. If there's anything going on outside your radical, like there is here, like this +5, I got to undo that first before I can do the squaring part. But once that radical's on a side by itself, like it was in the first one, that's when we're ready for the squaring step. And again, that just cancels the square. Whatever's underneath is still there. 2 to the second power is 4. And I think we can handle the division here. And we just keep rolling. So again, you won't have to do all, 15 problems on this sheet. You'll get to the end before that. But again, it gives you nice practice, because this and the graphing we just got done with will be the main 2 things that show up on the quiz on Thursday. So just some things to consider. And at worst case scenario, if you're bored out of your mind, go and do the quiz preview at the end of this because we're going to be chatting about that tomorrow. So I will